All right, giving it just a minute to let all attendees join us this afternoon. Welcome to Ignite's Fire Pitch semifinals. This is round 2. We had a great round earlier this morning. So bear with us for just a minute as all the attendees sign in. And I know we have some judges that are showing up as attendees. So I'm in the process of converting some of you to panelists so you can participate as judges. And also I see a couple of our startup entrepreneurs as well, and I'm promoting you as panelists. So bear with me for just a minute. Okay, I think one more. Okay, I think we have got everybody on for our presenters, our judges, and our moderators. Welcome, everyone. I'm Aisha McCracken, the founder of Ignite Healthcare Network. We're thrilled to have you here today for round 2 of the semifinals for Fire Pitch this year. We're excited to be working with 22 startups that represent 4 countries and 6 states. And those 6 states, it's interesting, 8 of our startups are actually from Texas. So this is the first time we have so much Texas representation, some great entrepreneurs coming from the great state of Texas. So these companies, these startups were selected by a team of industry experts that include clinicians and provider and payer executives and VCs. So it's a pretty rigorous process. We had 135 companies that actually went to that process. And the selection committee volunteered over 120 hours of time to evaluate the applicants and identify those that are the most promising. So we've got a great cohort. In this round, you're going to hear from 6 companies. You'll hear 8-minute pitches. And then it'll be followed by a 10-minute Q&A session with a panel of industry expert judges. The finalists for Fire Pitch competition will be determined based on today's scores, as well as the scores from the company's mentors through Ignite's partner program. We're so grateful to the many executives and VCs who spent their time mentoring and serving as judges for this year's class of startups. So each year, we also include one finalist that's selected by the audience. So be sure to vote for the People's Choice Award winner by going to the link that was emailed or will be emailed after, actually, for the attendees. We'll email that link to you so that you'll have it. At the same time, you're going to see it multiple times over the course of this afternoon as it's shown up on the screen. So feel free to grab it then as well. So we're incredibly grateful to an amazing group of sponsors that have supported our events for years. And those sponsors this year are led by Memorial Hermann, Next Level Urgent Care, TMC Innovation, McKinsey & Company, Houston Methodist, and Johnson & Johnson. Each of these organizations have sponsored our programs for many years, helping Ignite to reach our ability to increase our ability to discover and accelerate startups led by exceptional women entrepreneurs. These semifinal rounds are moderated by several of Ignite's Accelerator alumni. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Therese Canaris, and Therese was last year's winner of the People's Choice Award, so she was among our great group of finalists for the 2021 Ignite Fire Pitch competition. And so at this point, Therese, I'm going to turn the program over to you. Give us a little update on your progress, and then go ahead and get the program started. Thank you so much for joining us.
Wonderful, Aisha. Thanks for inviting me back. As Aisha mentioned, I'm Dr. Therese Canaris. I'll be your moderator today, and I was also the People's Choice Award winner from last year. By night, I'm a pediatric emergency physician. By day, I'm the CEO and founder of Curie DX. At Curie DX, our mission is to improve telehealth. We are creating a suite of diagnostic tests that you can do in seconds with just a smartphone image and AI. Our diagnostic testing panel starts with strep throat, and we have tests for other diseases in our pipeline. Now, let me say the Ignite experience was incredible. The mentors, investors, the thought leaders in healthcare, basically the judges you'll see here today, offered invaluable advice to support me and my company. And perhaps most importantly, our team of finalists formed an unbreakable bond that you can't recreate outside of the Ignite experience. Since pitching at the finals last spring, we've made significant strides in our AI technology. Our current AI models are outperforming clinician predictions for strep throat. This preliminary data enabled us to win our 5th grant. So far, we've raised over $300,000 in non-dilutive capital. We're planning for our seed round next year, and today would welcome speaking with anyone in the telehealth software industry. So thank you, Aisha, and the whole Ignite team for this incredible program. Now let's move on to the main event. As a brief reminder to our founders and judges, please remain muted and camera off until it's your turn. Each company will have 8 minutes to present. Judges will have 10 minutes for questions that can be live and input into the chat box. Now, my family's Filipino, and for Filipinos, time is like a fluid suggestion. But as the timekeeper today, we are not running Filipino time, so I may give a gentle nudge to keep us on track. Now, I'd like to share gratitude to our esteemed judges today. Our judges hail from a diverse background. We have investors, healthcare executives, physicians, and at least one recovering lawyer. So thank you, judges. For the audience, feel free to use the Q&A. Instructions for audience voting will also appear between presentations. Now, let's get this pitch competition started. First up, we have Alice Zhang presenting for Anise Health. Take it away, Alice.
Great, thank you, Therese, and thank you all the judges and audience for being here. Let me just make sure, is my screen shared correctly?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. So, hi everyone. I want to start by sharing a story about Jenny. Jenny became depressed in her new job, but her therapist ignored the role her Asian values played. Ultimately, her fear of losing face drove her to the edge. I'm Alice, CEO of Anise Health, and I lost Jenny, my close friend, to suicide. Like Jenny, the 130 million Black, Indigenous, and people of color, or BIPOC, in the US are 2 to 5 times more likely to drop out of mental health care treatments prematurely, and 50% more likely to report such treatments being ineffective. This has a huge impact, costing employers $15,000 per employee per year from both inflated healthcare costs as well as loss of productivity, ultimately resulting in turnover. Socially, despite $280 billion spent annually on mental health care, there's still devastating health inequities for BIPOC. With the racial reckoning in this country and the corresponding need to advance DEI efforts, the demand for a better mental health solution for BIPOC is at an all-time high. Specifically, we've set the Asian community as our initial target due to the significant unmet need. Asian employees are affected not only by the 700% rise in anti-Asian racism and violence, but also the underrepresentation and a lack of inclusion in the workplace. The need for a targeted solution for BIPOC exists because the root of the problem is complex. On the left, you see the founding fathers of psychology. On the right, you can see that BIPOC have been severely underrepresented in psychiatric clinical trials. It's evident that the current standard of care wasn't built for BIPOC. Further research has shown that culturally adapted psychotherapy is 5 times more effective than conventional or no treatment. And that's why we've created Anise Health, the gold standard of mental health care for BIPOC. Our core differentiation is our unique care model designed to drive long-term outcomes. Our holistic care model includes therapy, coaching, digital self-service contents, and support groups delivered by our curated network providers who we train and certify in cultural sensitivity. On the technology side, we're building one of the largest BIPOC mental health care data sets. This data powers our proprietary machine learning models used to personalize treatments. And finally, we're building a brand focused on community so that people with shared lived experiences can support each other for long-term well-being. So how does it work? Patients fill out an intake form, which allows us to assess their needs. They then get matched to 2 to 3 Anise therapists, after which they simply log into their portal, pay for their monthly subscription and schedule their weekly sessions and start treatment right on our secure telehealth platform. And lastly, they receive ongoing support, including progress reports and digital resources. We did a meta-analysis of treatment data collected by Anise's clinical director and proved that our care model outperforms benchmark by almost 3 times due to our differentiated clinical insights about the Asian population that we've built into our services, which I'll be happy to go over in more detail in the Q&A. We're excited to share some really promising early results from our beta launch in California. Long story short, Anise works. 94% of our clients who signed up indicated Anise's cultural focus and/or unique clinical model as the primary reasons for signing up, demonstrating that there really is an unmet need. All of our clients have reported feeling heard or understood by their provider, indicating high satisfaction with our provider curation and training. And we've seen around an 85% renewal rate for month 2 treatment, showing our ability to engage our clients with our clinical model. And we're also seeing an average of 23 to 34% improvements in depression, anxiety, and stress-related symptoms in just 4 weeks, demonstrating our ability to improve outcomes quickly. The most common alternatives to Anise, used by around 60% of those who seek therapy currently, are the traditional directories found through insurance networks and EAP programs, which are not tech-enabled and have limited availability and low engagement. The other alternatives are the one-size-fits-all digital mental health apps. Of these, those who brand themselves as culturally competent are solely focused on adding therapists of color to their network, which isn't scalable and doesn't actually drive outcomes. In the long run, Anise's proprietary care model, data set, and brand will be our competitive moat. Despite our focus, we service an $18 billion and growing mental health market for BIPOC, and our beachhead market alone represents a $4 billion opportunity. Our go-to-market strategy follows a B2C to B model where we deliberately first go direct to consumers to build a best-in-class product, after which we plan to focus solely on the B2B channel for scaling. Since launching our beta in June, we've demonstrated really high traction and engagement. We've completed 200 sessions on our platform to date and trained 23 culturally sensitive providers. We've also secured paid pilot programs with 3 enterprise customers ahead of our schedule, driven by the rise in demand for solutions addressing both mental health and DEI in the workplace. In our current B2B phase, our business model is a tiered monthly subscription plan. We charge our users at market rate at around $250 per month for 4 sessions, and we reimburse our therapists who are 1099 contractors on a per session basis. By titrating our core services across different tiers of subscription, we drive a healthy average unit margin of around 40% and LTV to CAC ratio of just under 8x. We have 2 business lines under our B2B channel. One is the enterprise core services, and the other is training programs. For the enterprise services, we'll use a pay-per-use model where employers will pay per active employee per month on our platform. Even with 50 active users from a company, we expect our annual contract size to average $250,000. Training programs are smaller in size, but have a very high margin and can serve as a steady source of passive income to support our growth. My co-founder Nisha and I met as classmates at HBS and worked together have over 15 years of experience in healthcare across a variety of functions. Additionally, our clinical director, Dr. Janie Hong, a Stanford-based psychologist and professor, is a KOL in the space with over 20 years of research and clinical experience. Our lead engineer, Rachel, joins us from Humana, and we're supported by a strong group of advisors who have experiences in engineering, enterprise sales, and payer partnerships at leading mental health companies. We're on track to hit our 2 pre-seed milestones. First, to validate our care model with 1,000 sessions completed, and 2, to enter the B2B channel. We're raising our seed round to establish a path to rapidly scale by securing full enterprise contracts and expanding our services to all BIPOC communities. And in order to do that, we're seeking $3.3 million in seed funding, which will give us 18 to 24 months of runway to reach around $2 million in ARR. So we hope you will join us in our journey to empower everyone to live an authentic and flourishing life. Thank you.
Well done, Alice. And let's open up the floor to our judges.
I'm gonna stop sharing so I can see everyone's face, but I can pull the slides back if anyone has questions.
One question that came up in the chat, there are a lot of culturally competent mental health solutions popping up out there because of this massive need. But one of the biggest problems we see is the lack of therapists. How do you solve for that issue? I think some of the scaling solutions were in your charts, but they went by a bit fast. Love a fast talk through though.
Yes, thank you for the question. And that's a really, really great question. Like I mentioned, to my knowledge, all the other players that are branding themselves as culturally responsive are mainly focused on ethnic matching of the provider and the patient, and of course encounter this problem of there being a lack of providers of color. And also, according to research, that doesn't directly correlate with outcomes because because of the problem lying at the intervention level. So at Anise, we have the ability to train providers with our care model, which we're currently clinically validating, but can drive outcomes more quickly. And this serves as a key differentiation. For example, we recently just presented at the Asian American Psychological Association, which is a key association for therapists in the space, had over 150 attendees come to our presentation on how to actually incorporate culture into therapy. There's a lot of talks about the importance of cultural humility and how it's important to be sensitive, but there isn't formal training on this topic. And so our ability to actually provide concrete strategies is a big differentiator. And someone asked about our training process. Really great question. So when providers pass through our screening process, we do an interview with them, we give them a case vignette to assess their baseline understanding of working with a diverse clients. And after which these providers are fully licensed, so they don't require an extensive training. We have a recorded training content of around 2 hours for them to get started. And then on an ongoing basis, we offer consultation groups with our experts, as well as peer consultations with the other clinicians on Anise network who are focused on serving these BIPOC communities. Because these issues are so nuanced and we can't, the solution isn't to say, this is step 1 through 10 to treat Asian population or to treat Latinx community population. And the solution really lies in continuous development and sharing of insights and clinical case discussions, which we host as a platform. And it also serves as a way for these clinicians to feel like a sense of belonging in their communities, meet other like-minded clinicians, which increases the stickiness of our clinicians to our platform while giving us that ability to scale our training programs as well.
I see a question from Susie DiStefano. Susie, would you like to ask your question?
Sure. Thank you for this presentation. Very interesting. My question was around your pricing strategy for both the B2C and B2B. Just wondered how you, what kind of sensitivity analysis or what your approach was, and for both both modalities?
So the pricing analysis for the B2B and B2C.
Yes.
Yeah, great question. So the B2C channel, there is a lot of predecessors prior to us, and they all average around $250 per month. So we took the market average and are seeing, people are willing to pay for that even out of pocket. And we also compare that to private practice rates, which in California is anywhere from $150 to even upwards of $300 per session, which people are still paying out of pocket because it's so hard to find someone who understands their needs and care that works for them. In the B2B space, there's also predecessors like Lear Health, Modern Health, Ginger, Spring Health of the world, and they use a PMPM model, PAPM model. And their contract size is also probably in like the upwards of $1 million to $2 million, depending on the company size. So we're taking a fairly conservative estimates here, where we in our calculation right now, we're assuming that for each active employee, the company will pay $350 per month, which is at a slight premium from our D2C rates, because it's beta pricing and we're trying to reduce the cost to our end users. But we think this is acceptably conservative estimates, and we're also benchmarking this against other mental health benefits as well.
Thank you. Quick follow-up question,
Yeah.
completely different. When it appears that it's a multimodal kind of opportunity, is there a built-in lifeline for someone that's, really distressed and kind of needs immediate intervention? How does that work?
We don't offer lifeline services. Many of the digital platforms don't have that built in because of the operational complexities. We typically target people who are in the mild to moderate range, and in the intake assessment, we screen for conditions like current suicidality and recent hospitalization to make sure that we're only serving the people that we feel comfortable about meeting their needs at full. But of course, there are lifelines that exist, and we will share those resources with people with a need. So the answer is no, but we have a screening to make sure that we're only servicing those who meet our criteria.
Thank you.
Looks like Nick Pajuda has a question.
Hey there. Great job, Alice. Just real quick. When do companies like yours typically exit? So what revenue or commercial proof of concept is going to be required to get someone to want to take you out?
Great question. I can share some recent transactions with you. I don't know if you're familiar with, for example, Headspace acquired Ginger recently, which is a B2B employer mental health benefits provider.
I guess specifically, like what sort of sales number do you need to hit to get people's attention?
When we're talking to payers, they require at least 100 to 300 patients over a span of 6 months to start discussing partnership opportunities. I think there's going to be an increasing consolidation trend in the mental health space and also the telehealth space at large. So I'm not too sure to give you an exact revenue number.
No, I guess what I mean is, when is someone going to want to buy your company?
I think when we hit some of the key milestones, one is developing our care model. That is going to be extremely valuable for anyone who's acquiring a service like ours, because that is our core differentiation. So we need to have the clinical model validated, have the training materials for our providers, and then have a footprint in the key geographies. I think the largest companies in the space right now, to give you a sense of their scale, so Lyra Health, valued at $3 to $4 billion, is 80 million in revenue. So if we can get to double-digit millions in revenue, that's already a very considered a very large presence, and would get on the radar of insurers and other telehealth companies.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, and that wraps up our judges Q&A session. Well done, Alice. Thank you, judges.
Thank you.
Judges will now have a 1-minute break to complete their feedback and scoring. All right, relaxing piano is over. So next up, we have Jennifer Newell presenting for Betty's Co. Take it away, Jennifer.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're doing well today. Get my screen up and running, and we can get started.
I think we lost Jennifer, but we will find her again. Let's see if she takes a few minutes. Let me check in with Ellie Gordon. You would be up next. If Jennifer takes more than a few minutes to come back, Ellie, would you be ready to go?
Sure.
Okay, we'll give her like another minute to reboot. Hi, Jennifer, welcome back.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Apologies for that. I'm not sure what happened. It was possibly user error, and my sincere apologies. Well, I will get us started this time and see if my screen will share to make sure I don't push the wrong buttons. All right. Can I get a quick check on volume and screen share? Can everyone see and hear me well?
Both are great.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right. Well, I'm delighted to be here. I'm Jennifer Newell. I'm the founder and CEO of Betty's. We are the next generation of women's healthcare and cater uniquely to Gen Z females. But before I tell you about my company, I want to share something about myself. Here I am at 17, and I hadn't started my period. After one visit with a gynecologist, I was diagnosed with an infertility causing condition. But that was just the beginning. I spent the next 5 years solo navigating a healthcare system that did not serve me as a younger woman well. Now, 20 years later, and with 15 years of experience in healthcare administration, I know that system hasn't changed. But don't take it from me. What do college women say about their experiences? These are the words they use to describe their most recent or first experience with the women's health provider. And this doesn't come as a surprise to most of us. We've felt these things during our visits at some point. But because today's options for women's healthcare do not cater to the needs and preferences of younger women, many put off their care. They don't know when or where or even why they need to go, and they have little incentive to do so. They need care though. There are 21 million females between the ages of 15 and 24 in the US, and they suffer from painful and disruptive periods, uncomfortable but common infections, and mental health conditions at higher rates than just about any other demographic. Not to mention pregnancy. And here in Texas, which is where we are based in San Antonio, our teen pregnancy rate is 6 points higher than the national average. We must do better by our young females. With the political climate shining an even brighter spotlight on women's healthcare, now is the time to invest in meaningful change. Meet Betty's, the next generation of women's healthcare. We're meeting Gen Z where they are, with the care they actually need and an experience they want. Betty's unique approach starts with us going to them, with a hybrid model of virtual and in-person care. You see, research shows Gen Z prefers in-person care as their primary method of connecting with a provider. So we offer in-person care in a stylish mobile clinic. This allows us to meet young women on college campuses, at their workplaces, and in the neighborhoods where they live and shop and play. But this is just the front door. We've built a custom digital platform through which we deliver telehealth visits. This setting allows us to meet Gen Z on their phones and computers. It's also where we expect to see the most volume and patient engagement. This hybrid model we've created, it makes us the most present and accessible option for care on the market. And at Betty's, we do care a little differently. We take a team approach and integrate gynecology, mental health, and wellness, screening across all 3 areas in every visit. Our services include well woman exams, contraception, including LARC, like IUDs and Nexplanon. We do care management for chronic conditions, including PCOS and PMDD. We do counseling and medication management for depression and anxiety and other mental health conditions. We also do wellness planning for nutrition, exercise, sleep, and stress management, and more. And our providers, they work at the tops of their licenses to deliver coordinated care, which also translates into more cost-effective care, all the while creating a better experience for our customers. This experience is what makes Betty's so unique. We have redesigned it at every level, but there are 3 anchors. The first is our technology. All patient-facing technology is custom to Betty's and is meticulously designed to engage Gen Z. The second is our visits. Imagine the Betty's experience. You come into the practice, there is no wait. Your provider knows your history and why you're there the moment you walk in, and you have a dedicated 40 minutes with your provider. But we don't stop there. The third anchor is ongoing support outside of the visit. Betty's patients get a personalized care plan that is interactive through our app, and a dedicated wellness coordinator to help each patient manage their care. This experience is resonating with our customers. Remember those words I shared at the beginning? Well, the most common feedback we hear from our patients is best represented with these 2 quotes. It's so convenient, so comfortable, and so affordable. And the second, I felt comfortable and happy. I never felt rushed or looked down on, which is pretty heartbreaking how frequently we hear that last comment, but that's why we exist. Since our mobile clinic launched this past March, and we had preceded that with our virtual care launch summer of 2021, we have delivered more than 300 visits in the San Antonio market. A third of our patients have needed ongoing care. This includes medically necessary follow-up visits, counseling visits, and healthy living visits, most of which are recurring visits delivered in our virtual care setting. And this brings us to our business model. So to start, we're a network with the major insurers. Our reimbursement rates are coming in at $124 for gynecology and $100 for a counseling visit, which is what we modeled. For our in-person care, one mobile clinic can serve 7,500 patients. Think of this number as both an annual number and as an ongoing panel of patients. Now, the cost to build and outfit a mobile clinic is $195,000, and that's adjusted for inflation. Total annual revenue potential is $850,000 with $350,000 in gross annual margin. But our mobile clinic is just a portion of the visits we see. The majority actually occur in our virtual system because our mobile clinic is the front door, as I mentioned. So the virtual system, which includes recurring counseling and wellness visits, at scale presents significant financial opportunities. $6.5 million in annual revenue potential from that same population of 7,500 patients with higher margins. Now for why we're here today. We see an underserved market ripe for Betty's care. So we are raising 2 to 3 million to begin scaling, with plans to serve over 20,000 women and achieve 6.2 million in annual recurring revenue across the next 2 years. And we're going to reach these milestones by expanding capacity with new mobile clinics, investing in customer acquisition, which includes bringing on a B2B salesperson to establish partnerships with colleges and employers and other on-site partners, and by enhancing our technology to increase customer engagement. We're seeking a strong anchor investor who believes in our mission and wants to come alongside us as we scale. This is not an opportunity you want to miss. In terms of our long-term plans and our exit strategy, I intend to grow Betty's into a profitable business that is highly attractive for acquisition in about 7 years. Although there's been some correction in the digital health market within the last several months, M&A activity in the physician group space is still projected to increase with acquisitions by large health systems, payers, and companies like Walmart, CVS, and Amazon. And we have the right team to take Betty's to this level. I've been in healthcare for nearly 15 years, having spent a decade of that with the Advisory Board, a healthcare consulting, technology, and best practices company. I'm joined by our medical director and clinical leader, Dr. Jillian Lopiano, who has her MPH from Yale and a medical degree from the George Washington University. She spent over 10 years working particularly with reproductive health. And we also have our tech development lead, Brian Adams, who formerly headed up app development for iHeartMedia. Us, along with an impeccable team, are changing how an entire generation experiences women's healthcare. Thank you. I'd love to take your questions.
Well done, Jennifer. Let's open up the floor for our judges Q&A. Starting with Tamara, please.
Sorry, I wrote a question. Hi, I'm Dr. Tammy Newhouse. I'm a 20+ year OBGYN. I guess a couple of my questions is one, does Gen Z care that they may not see the same provider every time? And the second thing that is most prescient is, how does the mobile clinic handle emergencies like an ectopic or a woman walking in there hemorrhaging on the floor, or somebody that is febrile and needs a hospitalization and an admission? Like, how are you working those details out?
Absolutely. I'll start with the first question. So in terms of Gen Z wanting to see the same provider, they are interested in seeing the same provider. So we're creating consistency there. Even though we're a mobile clinic, that mobile clinic goes to the same rotations each month. So we establish some consistency and some opportunities for care. Also, our in-person providers can also be virtual providers. So they get the choice of booking with the same provider if they desire, or they can book based on their schedule. The other consistency factor there is the wellness coordinator that we have that works with them. So they will have a stable point of contact who is managing everything outside of the visit. So if they have questions that can be answered by a nurse practitioner versus the MD, that care coordinator or wellness coordinator, can go to that nurse practitioner, get those questions answered, or make recommendations to that patient that are in the patient's best interest. So there are a couple of ways. They do care about it. We're creating a branded experience, and over time want to see them develop a relationship with Betty's versus an individual, and are eager to kind of see how that plays out. The second question is a great question. Right now, we have emergency protocols in place where we are calling an ambulance and we are taking them to the closest facility that we possibly can. So I know our clinical team, our medical director in particular, has designed those emergency processes so that the team knows how to act if there's something that's emergent happening, and then we make sure that they get access to a hospital or an ER.
Thank you, Dr. Newhouse. Dr. Shippey also has a question.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. My question is, where do your docs come from and how many do you have right now?
We have our medical director who leads the care team, and we are staffing mostly with physician assistants and nurse practitioners. So we have 2 right now in the San Antonio market. They are our employees at this moment. They are not calling in, and they're not independent contractors. Some of our counselors are independent contractors, and we anticipate having a mix of W-2 and 1099 resources in the mental health space, but they are currently, in terms of the gynecological care or the integrated care provided by a nurse practitioner or mid-level, they are essentially Betty's team members, fully dedicated.
And can I ask a follow-up? Do you have a number in mind in terms of how you're going to scale where you need to be at in terms of the number of clinicians?
We don't have a particular number in mind on the gynecological side. That's a really great question. So we kind of think of it in terms of the number that we need to support a mobile clinic. So as I mentioned, a mobile clinic can support 7,500 patients. And so for that to also filter into the virtual care system, we need about 3.5 to 4 FTEs to serve that patient population. And so we kind of think of it in terms of that. And so then when we look at the growth of the mobile health, the mobile clinics and the virtual care system, we do have that baked into our model. We don't have a max number, if you will, that we're trying to achieve though.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shippey. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
All right, Dr. Dooley also has a question for you.
Oh, Dr. Dooley, I believe you might be on mute.
Sorry. Hi, Jennifer. Thank you so much for the presentation. Absolutely a really clear unmet need here. And you answered a little bit of this with your response to Dr. Newhouse's, but given the political situation, how do you think about managing abortion access and sort of following opportunities to either deliver care like via leverage your telemedicine side to partnerships and things like that? Can you talk a little bit more about how you're thinking about the landscape more broadly?
Absolutely. And that's something that we think about and we talk about constantly as a team, and that's ever evolving. Our current plan is that we don't provide obstetrical care now, so we're not caring for any pregnant individuals. And so we are referring out to a private practice at that stage. So how we are approaching access is really through educating our patients, both on a global level through social media, through our lifestyle site where we have a lot of content, and then of course through one-on-one conversations that are private between the practitioner and the patient to talk about that patient's options for care. Beyond that, because our growth strategy is we're in Texas, we plan to stay in Texas and expand here, but also move into the Southeast and into the Midwest, where there's an even greater need because there are fewer resources. We realize we are wading into pretty political waters. And what we want to be is we want to be a resource for that young woman or that young female at Betty's, regardless of that person's political affiliation, to come in and feel like they're going to get high quality healthcare. So we are doing our best to make sure our patients have access to the resources they need, and we keep that relationship personal and confidential with our providers and our patients, and have some global communication around what's available to them.
All right, Nick Pachuta has a question.
Yep. Hey, Jennifer, great job. So sort of on the same line, something tells me you're going to need a strong legal team. Especially as you move, Texas is one thing, which is, obviously a challenge in other states. Is your business model or what you're able to do, your services, is it going to vary state by state? And how's that going to impact your ability to scale?
What we're seeing and kind of reading the tea leaves, no, not necessarily, because we are focused on mostly preventive care management for some chronic conditions, and we're not looking to delve into the fertility space. Now, if state governments come back and they start to look at contraception and they start to put parameters on what contraception women can access, we're keeping a very close eye on that to try to see what trends we can see. So we're staying on top of it. Right now, it doesn't look like that is moving forward. It looks like that was just a little bit of heightened concern right when Roe was overturned. We do have a fantastic legal team, a healthcare legal team actually based here in San Antonio. I will say that, and lots of phone calls between them. Another thing I'll say is a trend that we're watching and how we are intending to move forward is as we think about data collection and building upon the technological foundation we have, we want to add things like trackers and tools that help our patients manage their care. And so we want to have a better understanding of how that data could be at risk before we implement some of those things. So we are, I will say, just being extremely cautious with where we invest in some places until things clear out. Now, the services themselves, state by state, ACOG is the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. They set the standard nationally for physicians. Now I know they have to obviously play in those political waters state by state, but those guidelines start for women at the age of 13. So between 13 and 15 is when that first gynecological visit is recommended. And we follow their guidelines for what is included in those wellness visits, those screenings, and the things that we look out for.
Okay, maybe just a quick follow-up. You mentioned you needed 7 years where you're targeting exit. What do you need to prove between now and 7 years from now to make this an attractive exit target?
Well, profitability is big for us. We want to increase our margins. And when we look at our unit economics over the course of several years, when we're getting into 2025, let's say we're at a steady state and we don't continue to raise and we're in 2025, our margins is starting to really improve significantly, particularly for a services company where they're north of 50%. Once we prove out our unit economics across that scale, we will be in a good position to be acquired. Now we want to be larger because we want Betty's to be a national brand. And so 7 years gives us that additional timeline, right? That additional 3 years to branch out into a broader geography and really establish a stronghold.
In our
Perfect, thank you.
last 45 seconds, Sarah Brand, you can ask one more question, please.
Sure. Is most of your target population insured? And hi, Jennifer. And what's your go-to-market? How do you get to those customers?
Yes, that's a really great question. The majority are insured. We are hyper-focused right now in our early stage on college women. That's because most four-year universities require college students to be commercially insured. Currently, we're seeing about 70% of our patient population is commercially insured, and the other 30% doesn't have any insurance. And so we are working to be affordable for self-pay. It's a very interesting dynamic because on the gynecological space, we see a slightly larger number of uninsured self-pay patients. On the mental health side, we see a larger number of insured patients. Our customers really want to use their insurance. That's one thing I will say about Gen Z. They seem less apt for things like subscription models and for anything that's going to be additional out of pocket.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Well done, Jennifer and Betty's Co. And thank you, judges. All right, we've got a 1-minute break of relaxing piano music while the judges score. All right, thank you, everyone. Next up, I'd like to welcome Ellie Gordon presenting for Behavior AI. Take it away, Ellie.
Thanks. All right, can everyone see my screen and hear me all right?
Yes.
Great, thank you. I'm Ellie Gordon, the founder and CEO of Behavior. We are on a mission to provide accessible mental health and addiction recovery support using AI, behavioral health technology, and wearables for crisis aversion, including return to use. Last year, 275 people died every single day from drug overdoses, with higher than ever annual deaths exceeding 100,000. Drug overdose is also the leading cause of accidental death in the US, and current treatment models are reactive, inefficient, and expensive. The costs of addiction and poor mental health are huge global crises. Recurrence of use often leads to a costly downward spiral that includes lost productivity, criminal justice costs, and healthcare costs. So this significantly impacts everyone, regardless of whether or not they or someone they know is battling with their mental health. The US addiction rehab industry was valued at $42 billion in 2020 and is growing. However, in this industry, many people fall through the cracks and lives are lost. You might not know this, but even people who go through the Cadillac programs, the Platinum programs, the folks who have insurance and can pay out of pocket still have a 90% return to use rate for heroin. And the gold standard treatment, which again is not available to everyone, still fails nearly half of the people. In our clinical studies, this was halved to a 26% return to use rate. Obviously, even in the best circumstances in the current system, we need better solutions. Meet recovery. Behavior uses proprietary AI-enabled predictions of upcoming pre-reuse events and detailed assessment summaries. Users can access digital interventions and choose to alert their care providers and support networks of high probability risk events. We also use HIPAA-compliant remote monitoring and connection, which supports health equity through care access, particularly for those struggling from societal safety and location barriers. Behavior offers an unparalleled proactive crisis aversion tool, bridging care gaps. It's an accessible, affordable, never before seen augment to mental health treatment that can predict and intervene in advance of a crisis event. Instead of only meeting people at their bottom when they are already having health consequences from their substance use, already losing their jobs and marriages, and their connections with their family and friends, we attempt to intervene and alert care providers and end users earlier when there are signs and symptoms that we can measure and are validated on things like stress, insufficient sleep, and heart rate variability. We fit neatly in the web of information flow. Here's a hypothetical example. Here you have a picture of Amy. Amy is abstinent and in recovery, but then her father passes away. Now her sleep is off, she's skipping her therapy appointments, has a racing heart, and she can't stop thinking about using again. Our system detects her physiological and behavioral patterns and shows Amy a photo of her daughter and a message that says, "I don't want to lose you again, I love you." We then connect Amy to her support network, and she makes it through this crisis phase without returning to use. The beauty of our technology is that it's completely customizable. Different interventions work for different people. And our solution is deceivingly simple. For the person in recovery, all you need to have is a smartwatch and a smartphone. Almost everyone has that or can purchase one easily, usually under $200. For the care provider, it's also simple because it's all on a dashboard where they can view the client information and insights. It's as simple as this, my smartwatch and phone. And all of us have this, and we don't even care which one you have, iPhone or Android. I'm wearing a Garmin Vivo Active 4, and we like that one now, but that will change over time as technology advances, and we are device agnostic. The AI is part of our secret sauce. Our application processes data from a wearable device and smartphone with custom AI models that identify periods of crisis risk for users. These data are used to suggest wellness methods at low levels of risk and to provide alerts to caregivers at higher levels. The core models are trained on data from rigorous pilot studies organized by Behavior. These models, which include custom neural networks, in addition to other prediction techniques, can be modulated on an individual basis with data from users to provide a unique prediction model per user. And part of our secret sauce is also our team. We were formed in January 2017 and are currently headquartered in Pittsburgh. The Behavior team also consists of experts, including behavior change specialists, mental health and addiction expertise, clinical support, and a slew of talented interns. We have a diverse, accomplished team who are passionate about using tech to solve problems. We offer a monthly subscription to our initial target customers, for-profit treatment centers and recovery homes that save money by reducing crisis events, such as return to use, and gain a competitive advantage by being able to provide lower reuse rates and innovative treatment approaches. Research shows that keeping patients in care longer leads to improved outcomes. Patients staying in care allows for increased patient retention, reliable billing, addressable costs, and time and staff allocation. Through a SaaS B2B model, we serve people in recovery as end users and their care providers or care managers as customers. Behavior's recovery system also serves care providers in a plethora of ways, including delivering better care at the right time, improving outcomes in terms of sustained sobriety of residential and outpatient clients, and improved traceability and retention of clients after their 30 to 60-day rehab. We recently secured nearly $2 million in funding from the National Institutes of Health over 3 years to work with the VA. And unfortunately, as many of you know, this is a very competitive grant, but it's doled out in pieces. Only $250,000 of that $2 million is currently available over this first year, and we need additional funds to allow us to do all of our strategic priorities, like furthering software development, bolstering our clinical outcomes, and building out our teams to rapidly scale our offering. We are also open to different types of funding, not just National Institutes of Health, whether it's investment, paid partnerships, grants, and others. And we have these funding goals, a $50K minimum support level and at least $250K available within 3 to 6 months. There are also other opportunities outside of the VA, customers, pilots, licensing, strategic partnerships, and distribution partners. But this isn't about the money. This is about the people we will be helping. The world needs behavior, and my team and I are the right people to accomplish this social good vision. Within 3 years, we endeavor to be the leading addiction and mental health recovery support platform. We will be positively impacting at least 5 million lives via our partner networks across academia, employers, care providers, insurers, governments, and health systems. With your help, we can accomplish these life-saving goals. Thank you.
Well done, Ellie. All right, I'd like to invite our judges to ask her some questions, please.
Hi, Ellie.
I have a question.
Oh.
Go ahead, Susie.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Ellie. Very
You're
interesting
welcome.
presentation, very thoughtful. Can you speak a little bit to the reliability and the validity of the data that's driving the algorithm? And then how frequently and how is the algorithm, the predictive analytics, how are those updated as you get more patients?
Yeah, that's a great question, Susie. So in terms of reliability and validity of data driving the algorithm, we have had our multiple clinical studies that were funded with the support of the National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation, and also in collaboration with top universities such as Carnegie Mellon University. We also have had vetting through those clinical studies with our reports submitted to those institutions, and we have also conducted customer discovery interviewing to validate the user experience and that end of it. In terms of the updates to the algorithm, we can actually do those quite quickly. Right now, in terms of the personalized models, we do need about 4 weeks of data from an individual. And as we gain more patients, that will be shortened. So our goal is to get to quite quick personalized models. In the meantime, though, we do have established information that allows us to provide base level predictions. And then, of course, efficacy goes up higher when the models are personalized.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Dr. Newhouse, I believe you were up next.
I wrote my questions in the chat as well. There's 2 questions. This is awesome, by the way. It's very exciting to me. But
you.
one is, how are you navigating HIPAA implications? So there's that with all that data retrieval. And number 2, what happens if a crisis escalates?
Yeah, those are great questions, Mara. So in terms of HIPAA implications, of course, data privacy is critical, particularly with mental health conditions and other conditions where there still exists a lot of societal stigma and bias. And so for that reason, we prioritize data security. We use all top-level security measures, and we utilize HIPAA compliance for our database and for our processes. All of our studies were IRB approved, and the data security plans have all been vetted by experts. In terms of crisis escalation, we have different options. So if when working with a provider who has a system in place, for example, an emergency hotline, then the information can be sent directly to that hotline who can reach out. We are not conducting the outreach to individuals personally. We are passing along the information to folks, whether it's a direct care provider, peer support, a care provider service, or an individual support network.
Thank you. Ken Janda had a question as well.
Yes, thanks, Ellie. Very great concept and very. You went really fast through the financing part of this, though, and what you're expecting in terms of pricing this and revenue moving forward. It sounded like you were looking for grants from the VA and things like that. But I was just sort of wondering, as you move forward, what's the pricing plan, and how many you have to sell, if you will. So.
Yeah, so that's a great question, Ken. Thank you. In terms of financing, we are currently we've primarily been funded through grants and investment. We have received investments from Innovation Works and the Richard King Mellon Foundation, and we have a plan for a $30 to $50 per person per month fee payable monthly with an annual commitment. This is about $1 to $2 per day to save lives, and it's something that is affordable for whether the cost is passed up on the individual, or whether the provider pays that as a part of the fee. Additional to that, our system is covered under insurance, so this allows for reimbursement. And by keeping an individual within the purview of the care provider, rather than leaving treatment early or leaving and then not coming back when needed, we're reducing gaps in care and keeping patients with the provider, and that provides additional billing opportunities. In terms of the reimbursement, of course varies by state, and we've identified a number of codes that are applicable, such as remote patient monitoring, that can be applied within all 50 states. Some states are better than others, though, in terms of technology coverage.
Thanks.
Wonderful.
Welcome.
Sarah Brand, you can ask your question.
Yes, I was wondering, your heroin return rate sounded like it was half of what the best, leading techniques are, which is amazing. I'm just wondering what data do you have, what studies have you done to show those incredible results?
Yeah, so we have done multiple clinical studies, and that was our study with our where we had the 4 weeks of measuring with urinalysis for ground truth, and we were surprised and delighted. And due to being a private company, we have not published. We do have a white paper, but that is private, so we can release that to folks for opportunities. We're hoping down the road, once we're larger and can keep some elements a little less proprietary, then we can release additional information regarding that. But it was a smaller sample size, so we had about our clinical studies, the largest one was about 100, and then the longer study was about 30 some folks. So it is a small sample size, but it was incredibly validating. And we're currently conducting multiple commercial trials, including one with a transition to customer agreement. And with that data, we will be releasing a public white paper that will also include commercial outcomes data. So we're really excited about that, to be moving from the smaller clinical studies to these commercial trials and pilots.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Thomas D'Souza has a question as well.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I was just kind of curious as to, if a patient is likely to relapse or even considering it, how early is your prediction? And then can you ensure compliance with the patient that they're wearing, maintaining that they're wearing their wearables or engaging with the platform?
Yeah, so the prime period to intervene, based on our models, is we can actually predict high level cravings up to 4 hours in advance in terms of the best level efficacy. So we can actually predict those up to 60 minutes, but the efficacy is highest within 4 hours. Additionally, that 4-hour period provides ample time to intervene. The intervention differs based on what an individual chooses to do. Every individual, has autonomy over their body, and they can, choose to take a device off. So this is for folks who are intentionally receiving care and actively participating. So if somebody needs an intervention, the default intervention is to first message the individual, and then to allow them to take action independently, and then to opt to alert their support network. We also have we're utilizing strategies from behavioral economics, motivational interviewing, and cognitive behavioral therapy to help nudge people towards positive behavior change. And while we initially got started to reduce mortality of overdose, we have also seen that there is a huge gap in terms of prevention and coming in early, helping folks to maintain their mental health while they're currently and actively receiving care. So we're excited to be able to participate with individuals all along their continuum of care, and our tool can stay with them and be applicable all along the way.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellie.
welcome.
That was a great presentation. And thank you, Behavior AI.
Thanks.
The judges can have 2 minutes to work on their scores. And meanwhile, let's learn a little more about the Ignite program. With a different video, just a second. All right, we are moving into our second half. The grand finale is coming up in November. That's really exciting. Our next presenter is Bettina Hein, presenting for Julie.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting Julie here and me to present. Let me just quickly share my screen here. All right. I hope you see my screen here.
Yes.
Can somebody confirm? Yeah? Does that work?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I'm Bettina Hein. I'm the founder and CEO of Julie. Julie is a platform to manage chronic conditions. I am a 3-time software entrepreneur. My 2 prior companies are worth over $100 million. And so this is my foray into something where I want to take all the experience that I've gathered in the last 20 years to really make an impact. These are, as some of you might recognize, the UN's SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And Julie is right in SDG number 3, good health and well-being. These are the goals for 2030. We are very grateful that just a few weeks ago, we were announced as part of the Impact 100 ideas that can change 1 billion lives on the planet. So these were 100 startups that were selected worldwide by the Norskin Foundation, and we received this prize in Stockholm from one of the members of the Swedish royal family. So how can we make that impact on 1 billion lives? Well, chronic conditions, as you know, are responsible for 70% of all healthcare related costs. If you add behavioral health into that, it's not about 90%. So this is a huge problem, and we attack that problem by allowing patients and their care teams to come together on a chronic condition management platform. That this big tasks I've taken upon myself together with a really awesome team. I met my co-founder, Joe Hayes. He's a professor at UCL at the World Economic Forum. He is a member of the Global Future Council for Mental Health, and together we birthed this ambitious idea. Also brought in as a COO, Bettina Dürkop, who has 25 years of experience as a marketer and as a product person, as well as Joris Stratmann, who's been an AI specialist and a CTO for over 20 years. And we're really pleased that we have among us our advisors, for example, Joe Quaidar of Harvard Medical School, who's considered one of the digital health pioneers, and he's the editor of Nature's Digital Medicine. Also have some great other advisors that you can see here. So with this team, we want to help Jana. Jana uses Julie, and she suffers from comorbidities, from migraines and from depression. And she's really at a loss what to do about this. She is in care, she is diagnosed, and she keeps trying to figure out what is wrong with her. And so she discovers Julie via her insurer, and she starts tracking with Julie's app. And Julie's AI identifies her patterns and her triggers. These data insights go to her care team, and we also give recommendations to Jana. So it seems that she needs more outdoor activity. And so one of the things that she comes up with is to volunteer walking her neighbor's dog. And also her care provider makes some suggestions, and Jenna actually gets less migraine attacks and her depression has markedly improved. So how do we do this? Well, let's say, why do we do this? The need for Julie is that between visits, care providers rarely know what's going on with their patients. They have no info about subepisodic events. They don't have integrated insights from all the data that patients produce as a matter of course every day of their lives. Patients aren't empowered with information to reduce their disease burden. If they had more information, which providers typically don't have time to give them, they would be able to be more engaged as patients and adhere more to treatment plans. Providers often miss opportunities for intervention, and that leads to poor health outcomes from really complex chronic conditions. Another problem is also that there is point solution fatigue. There are many apps out there that help people manage this chronic condition or another chronic condition, but care providers, chronic care management systems are really overwhelmed, and there's not enough IT capacity, which I know very much about as a technologist, to integrate all of the solutions that are out there. So what does Julie do? We integrate previously siloed data. So we take everything from your smartphone, from your wearables and connected devices like scales and blood pressure cuffs. We take environmental data that is rarely integrated, which is weather, air pollution, pollen count, humidity levels, etc. We take everything in your electronic health record and we tie that all together with self-reported data. Every day, our patients get asked less than a handful of questions that then are marked together with all the passively collected data that we get from patients. And we put all of this together in a unified chronic condition platform. We can add new conditions within weeks. So right now we cover hypertension, chronic pain, bipolar disorder, asthma, depression, and migraine. And we can also cover any combination of those conditions because we can just combine all that data and adjust the clinically validated scores that we evaluate our patients with. We combine a patient-centric app, which has a dashboard, a chat, a journal function, also a gamified interface to get people into some micro behavioral changes. We combine that, and by the way, we've onboarded over 20,000 patients to our app.
Bettina, we'll pause you here because we want to make space for our judges to ask a few questions.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, judges, feel free to jump in, either chat or unmute.
Bettina, hi, this is Angela Shippey. How are you keeping patients engaged? I see there's a gamification component to this. How are you ensuring that they're interacting enough with the app so that you can ensure the insights and help them on their journey?
So what we do is we do a number of things that make it more interesting. We give them interesting insights, we give them information. We also prompt them, for example, on their devices. We also make sure that they get prompted for their medication intake. And what we've seen is that we, comparatively to other apps, we have about a 3 to 5x higher retention rate than health and wellness apps that are like ours.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ken Janda, you're up next.
Yeah, could you talk, all right, thanks, Tina. Talk a little bit about how you're pricing it. You're marketing this to the insurance companies and to self-funded employers. Is that the plan?
That's correct.
Pricing of that?
That's correct.
And what's the
Mhm.
for the ROI for employers or insurers doing this?
So what we're charging right now is around $1 per day per patient, so around $30 a month for this. And the ROI is something that we're a little bit too early stage to actually really show an economic outcome on this. But what we do see is that if you look at here our early outcomes, you can see that patient outcomes are significantly improved. So we see, for example, a 22% reduction in the PHQ-8 in depression, or we see a 55% reduction in the number of patients that are hypomanic. We reduce poorly controlled asthma by a significant amount, et cetera. So these patient outcomes already are sort of guiding into the direction that we will save cost by reduced hospitalizations, by ER visits, et cetera.
Thanks.
Mhm.
All right, the floor is open for additional questions.
Hey there. I know you didn't get to it, but I'll ask you, what needs to be proven for you to be able to get an exit, and when might that happen?
Yeah, so I've exited one company. I raised $8 million for that, and we got back 125, and we're in a process with my second company. So I can tell you that it takes quite a long time. We've been doing this for 2 years now, and I think it will take probably another 7 to 8 years to be able to exit. I think we'd have to be over $30 million in revenues in order to be able to accomplish either, if you want to do a smaller exit, obviously you can do that earlier, but this has to be the big one for me. So I think that 30 million is probably the threshold. If we can get, let's say twice that, we could probably also look at the public markets.
Okay, thanks.
As we're waiting for any other judge questions, Bettina, what is the most common question that you're asked about your product and your technology?
We're typically asked, how does the AI do this? And what we do, and so what all my companies have done is taken large amounts of data, applied AI to optimize for a certain outcome. What we do is we apply our machine learning models that we generate from all of this data, and we look at it for patterns and for triggers and levers. And the way that we do that is that we use genetic algorithms, for example, and a host of other things that allow us to pull out that information. And other things that we do, which is typically not done, is that we employ algorithms that are used in advertising, in gaming, and in e-commerce to make our solution more attractive and more achieve more retention. So yeah, that's one of the common questions that we get asked. Another is how does this work with the providers? So what we do is we pull in all that data, and then we integrate it into the clinical workflows. What we really can do is that we can allow care teams to allocate their resources to the right patient at the right time, and not rotely call down the 500 or more patients that are assigned to them, because we can show with the traffic light system how people are doing, and if they're trending down, the care teams can call those people rather than the ones that are on green in our traffic light.
Thank you. One more question from Dr. Dooley, please.
Hi, Bettina. Thank you so much. Really liked seeing your clinical data there. Can you maybe talk a little bit about how you stratify it, and if you're seeing differentiated outcomes between, sex, gender, race, ethnicity, social, economic status, and things like that, and what any future plans in that direction might be?
We just saw that, well, first of all, at the beginning, we did not ask our patients that question, which was probably a mistake. But since we started asking about their ethnic backgrounds, we've seen that we pretty well match the proportion of the different ethnicities in the population. So we think we're on the right track there. In terms of the study that we're doing now, this is real world evidence. So we don't have right now a control group against that. But what we are doing right now is that we are running 2 randomized clinical trials, which we have almost fully enrolled. And I think that we will have data available by the end of this year, early next year, that we will then publish. Right now, obviously, we can't access that data before it's not independently analyzed, but we really have reason to believe that that will also come out, since we've looked at the real world evidence there.
All right, Bettina, thank you so much for presenting Julie to us. Judges, thank you for your questions. Judges have 1 minute to deliberate, and meanwhile, we will refresh ourselves on how to vote for a People's Choice Award. All right, thank you. Little known fact, that was me playing piano live. Just kidding. All right, next up, Joanna Nathan, who is presenting for Prana Thoracic. Take it away, Joanna. Okay.
Just wanted to do a quick check on sound and slides. Can you guys hear me? See my slides?
Both are good.
Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Joanna Nathan, and I'm the CEO of Prana Thoracic, where we are developing the future of early intervention for lung cancer. I want to take a minute to thank the Ignite team for putting on such a great event and for giving us the opportunity to share our stories here, as well as the judges. I know you're 90 minutes into pitches in the late afternoon, and so I hope I can keep you guys with me as I take you through our story over the next few minutes. So lung cancer is the #1 cancer killer in the US, more than breast, prostate, and colon combined. This is a devastating disease to patients and their families, both in the speed with which it progresses and its relative incurability. If you're diagnosed with lung cancer today, there is a 60% chance that you won't make it through the next year. I just want to let that statistic settle in for a second because I think that is unacceptable in 2022. So one of the reasons for this is that we simply don't catch lung cancer early enough. So unlike prostate, breast, colon, we haven't historically screened for lung cancer. Now this has started to change. There are new guidelines in place that recommend annual screenings for high-risk patients that are covered by CMS. However, screening compliance is still low, and one of the reasons that we believe that this is the case is because physicians still don't have the right tools to provide patients with a definitive diagnosis. So let's talk about what happens today. If you come in for a CT and have a suspicious nodule show up on your lungs, there are currently 3 options. One is to try to get to it with a needle, but especially in earlier, smaller nodules, this is very challenging to do accurately. So about 25% of the time, you're going to get a false negative rate, and there's a 15% indeterminate diagnosis rate as well. So you're telling a lot of patients they don't have cancer when they do, and you're also telling a lot of patients you don't really know what's going on. The second is to do a surgical wedge. This is kind of what it sounds like. This is where you do an invasive procedure to remove the nodule as well as all of the tissue that it takes to go find that nodule. These procedures are 100% definitive. However, in the trial that led to current screening guidelines, about 20% of surgical procedures that were done on benign nodules. So you've now impaired that patient's lung function and their quality of life for the rest of their life, and they didn't even have cancer. Finally, you can get put in the wait and watch bucket. So this is where you're asked to come back every 6 months for a CT. Now, I think this is a terrible option for patients for many reasons. I just know I personally would not be satisfied with that approach of just not knowing what's going on. So there's a clear need for a way to minimally invasively access these nodules that also provides a definitive diagnosis. That's what we've developed here at Prana. The underlying mechanism of our device is similar to that of surgical staplers, but instead of a linear cutting tool, it's a cylindrical coring tool. Our device works by placing an anchor in the nodule under CT guidance. We then core and cut down to the nodule while sealing blood vessels and airways along the way. And then we extract that whole piece of tissue to send to pathology, which is so much better than a handful of cells that you can get with a needle. Because now not only can you say definitively if there's cancer or not, you can sequence, you can do so many things to determine the ideal treatment pathway for that specific patient. Our device provides physicians with a way to intervene earlier. It is economically advantageous to the system, and it's reduced OR time and length of stay. And finally, most importantly, it gives patients with that certainty and peace of mind in having a definitive diagnosis, hopefully earlier in their cancer journey. We see ourselves as a surgical device, not a better needle biopsy. So our initial approach will be for this device to be primarily used by thoracic surgeons. But as we demonstrate safety, the long-term vision is for this to go downstream to interventional radiologists and pulmonologists, kind of like what happened with TAVR and interventional cardiologists. When you combine the existing markets with the predicted incoming high-risk screening market, there are about 2.4 million nodules that could benefit from our device just in the US. We plan on pricing similarly to surgical staplers, so about $3,000. And this creates a massive market opportunity that doesn't even include other opportunities like interstitial lung disease, pulmonary metastatic disease, and so on. Now, while there may be 2.4 million nodules, we really have thought a lot about what that initial target patient population is. So we believe that's those patients that have intermediate sized nodules, so the 6 to 12 millimeter range. That's what's considered clinically relevant today. And then specifically for patients with intermediate risk of probability of cancer, this is a commonly calculated number that tumor boards use when making decisions on patients. So that intermediate size and intermediate risk patient, that's where we think will be a first line option. To date, we've proved our device works repeatedly in animals without concerns of bleeding or air leaks, which are the biggest safety concerns with any surgical lung procedure. And now, and we've actually done that in chronic animals as well, where we've, excised a piece of lung tissue, survived the animal, come back and seen a nice, clean, sealed up nodulectomy site. So now we're ready to take this device to the next stage for use in humans. This round of financing will take us through first in human studies. Our plan is to do a 2-site study, one OUS and one at MD Anderson. We believe our device will be cleared through the direct de novo pathway. At least initially, we'll keep our indications relatively high level, so around excision of lung tissue, not really mentioning cancer. This is a tool that surgeons can use for different indications. And so that's kind of the initial approach to get us on market. So while this device was actually seeded and developed within J&J, this company is a spin out of the Johnson & Johnson Center for Device Innovation here in Houston. This is actually an open market deal. So J&J is kind of a co-founder in our round, is participating in our round, but they won't have a board seat or a right of first refusal. And we've actually already begun early conversations with other strategics as well in this space. We believe there's a strong chance that we'll exit pre-commercial launch. As you can see from this data from Silicon Valley Bank, that is fairly common for de novo devices, which is kind of that middle row right there. So according to this, at least it's typically about 5 to 6 years from that first institutional funding to exit. We're currently in the middle of our Series A raise. We're actually in the middle of completing our first close today. So we're doing that first close on $2.5 million from the groups listed on the screen, including Johnson & Johnson putting in some cash in addition to their IP, as well as the TMC Venture Fund. We've also received a seed award from the Cancer Prevention Research Institute of Texas of $3 million. So we're keeping the round open for the next couple of months to raise the rest of it. Our plan for the next couple of years is on this slide. So we're looking at this first year, taking our animal study prototype and getting that ready for human studies, and then actually going and completing that 10 to 15 patient study. This is our team. So myself, I'm a bioengineer by training. I'm a repeat medtech entrepreneur. I spent the last few years on the investor side, first at Mercury Fund, and then managing a portfolio of startups for the Center for Device Innovation. And I'm very excited to be jumping back into the entrepreneur seat in such a meaningful space. Ken Boucher is our chief operating officer. He's led product development teams, both in small startup settings and large companies as well for 25 years. Rick and Ed are my co-founders. They're thoracic surgeons that came up with the original IP for this. They've practiced for several years in the space, and Ed himself is a repeat entrepreneur, a medtech entrepreneur in his own right as well. And then we're supplemented with great clinical advisors. Mara and Aldar are physicians from MD Anderson that are on our CPRIT grant. And then Billy Cohn, who's on the majority of our patents and is the executive director at the Johnson & Johnson Center for Device Innovation, will be supplementing as well our clinical advisory board. So that's our story, and I'm looking forward to any questions that you might have at this point.
Well done, Joanna. Judges, feel free to jump right in or message in the chat.
Hey, Joanna, Nick Pachuta here. Great job. Worked at J&J for 10 years. Know the crew down there very well. Just 2 quick technical questions. What is the accuracy of your CT guidance? You know, how many millimeters accuracy are you seeing in the animal models? And what's your success on clean margins?
Yeah, so we actually are not incorporating any imaging ourselves. So this is just, this is the same procedure that you do today for localizing a nodule. So it's placing essentially a needle under CT guidance. And at least in the animals, we've been able to do that, within a couple of millimeters. It obviously depends on how peripheral, how deep, different things like that the nodule is as far as that. But we're just to be clear, we're not incorporating any imaging
Right.
ourselves. It's just using kind of the existing procedure.
So my question would be then, are you accurate enough to get the nodule and, normal tissue around it to be able to make the diagnosis and feel comfortable that you've got that nodule out and there's nothing else left behind?
Yes, we are comfortable enough with that, especially for the smaller nodules. There's a little bit, more margin of error. I will say, while the longer term vision is to get the whole nodule out, and hopefully standard of care goes to where in some cases, pulmonary mets, things like that, that could be considered therapeutic. Initially, it's really just to get enough tissue to make a definitive diagnosis.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Joanna, Thomas D'Souza here. Good to connect with you again.
Hey,
Nice
Tom, how are you?
presentation.
Thanks.
how are you, there's a lot of, different proteomic diagnostic technologies that have come on. I know a bit about this space. I was actually working with one of those companies a few years ago. So how can you work with them in, the molecular kind of definitive diagnostics and, coming in to maybe confirm, its malignancy?
Yep.
I know the weight and watch category usually falls between 3 and 8 millimeters,
Right.
depending on the institution or protocols, but how do you see yourself kind of, partnering with those emerging technologies?
Yeah, so we think we're actually complementary to a lot of the emerging technologies in this space. So we think, believe we're complementary to robotic bronchoscopy in the device space, but
Mhm.
also liquid biopsy, ablation, other things like that. And that's because, so on the diagnostic side, right, tissue is still king. Pathologists still want that tissue to make a definitive diagnosis. So even with things like liquid biopsy and that kind of stuff coming online, at least for, the next couple of decades, we believe in what we see is that you'll still want to go get that tissue sample to figure out what's going on. The other side is we think we can actually partner with other technologies in this space that are trying to treat, right? So they're, therapeutically address the space, where we've now provided a direct tunnel to wherever that nodule was. So we could leave in, a chest tube, whatever, leave in some access basically. And you can now deliver potentially local therapeutics. You could ablate. It basically opens up the options beyond just surgery for treatment for these patients, right? And so there's quite a few partnerships that we see ourselves potentially partnering, both on the diagnostic side, but also on the therapeutic side.
And your tool currently, what is the range of nodule size for, appropriate resection? Is there a maximum? I know that obviously it's harder to get clean margins on the smaller nodules, but on the larger nodules, is there a maximum nodule size that is too large for your tool?
Yeah, so anything larger than 12 millimeters is too large for a tool, but also just not as challenging to get to with a
Right,
needle.
yeah.
So it becomes less useful beyond that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
While we're waiting for other judges' questions, I have one too, if that's okay.
Sure.
I'm sorry if I missed this, but can you speak a little bit to how you're thinking about reimbursement?
Yes, yeah. So right now, at least initially, we think that we can take advantage of existing codes in the space. So let me see if I can actually share this. So this is the current state for those wedge resections that I mentioned, which are kind of the surgical intervention right now. Most of those patients, have enough morbidities that they kind of go after this kind of bigger DRG code. And this is how this breaks out right now in terms of length of stay and cost of our time. And just by shrinking all of that down, I'm fairly sure we'll actually do better than this in terms of OR time and length of stay. But, conservatively, let's say we half, each basically. We expand that profit margin available then to the system essentially. So that's our initial approach. And of course, we'll have to think about how, as we gain traction in the market, how we may want to do things differently.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, judges, feel free to jump in. Or you answered every question they could have had during the presentation.
Hopefully it's not, and I didn't bore everyone to sleep. So yes.
Joanna, who would be your kind of ideal strategic acquirer?
Oh, that's a good question. As somebody that was a J&Jer for the last 4 years, I have to say, I guess J&J, but I think an Intuitive also, just folks that have really already spent a lot of time in the space. They've invested in robotic platforms in the space. I think I would say those are the two big groups, honestly. And then there's a host of others, right, that are in interventional radiology, Boston, Medtronic, those kinds of folks. Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're doing a de novo pathway. What was the time frame on that to be completed?
It will be post this round essentially. So this round will take us through first in human.
Okay.
And then we're assuming we'll have to do a 50 to 75-ish patient study. We need to go have a deeper conversation with the FDA about that. And then in the coming months, that's our plan. We're actually working on our pre-sub right now to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, judges, for all your questions. Joanna and Prana Thoracic, great presentation. We will take a pause while the judges compute their scores and allow me to play for you again. All right, and our final pitch today is from Elizabeth Jaworski, presenting for XN Health. Go for it, Elizabeth.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm happy to be here and I'm excited to share today how XN Health is going to help mechanically ventilated patients muscle through the ICU. So more people than ever rely on mechanical ventilation to survive. I'm sorry, can you guys see my screen? Okay, yeah.
Yes, you're good.
More people than ever rely on mechanical ventilation to survive, but unfortunately, this life-saving treatment is also causing these patients significant harm. So the average healthy diaphragm measures to about the thickness of a notepad, but after as little as 3 days on ventilation, that muscle mass is dramatically weakened and the thickness is cut in half. And it's this lack of muscular integrity that makes it really difficult for patients to breathe on their own once they're ready to be weaned off a ventilator. So you might be surprised to find out that 40% of ventilator time is time that patients spend just trying to get off the ventilator. And I'm pretty sure I don't need to convince anybody here that no one wants to be on a ventilator for any longer than they have to be. So the phrenic nerve, depicted here in yellow, is responsible for controlling the diaphragm. And so normally your brain is sending signals down this nerve to induce contractions of this muscle, helping you breathe. The problem is that while you're ventilated, you're sedated. So your brain isn't sending these signals and your diaphragm stops contracting. So our solution is to artificially stimulate the phrenic nerve during ventilation, reactivating to the diaphragm. And so we've developed a patent pending system that activates the muscle and builds upon the standard ventilatory circuit. Our device is deployed at the bedside, and our catheter-based system leverages the endotracheal tube that's already in place in these patients to provide therapeutic stimulation to the phrenic nerve through the inside of the trachea. And through multiple short duration workouts, we help these patients maintain their muscle mass. So at XN Health, we're leveraging the abundant amount of clinical literature that proves that phrenic nerve stimulation actually can improve ventilator wean times. But what's unique about our solution is our approach to phrenic nerve stimulation. So in the last year, we've been able to build a functional prototype that we've now tested in 8 large animals. And here you can see in this video, we're able to induce contractions in the diaphragm through the trachea and in pace with the ventilator. And so these studies are showing that the trachea is a viable access route to capture the phrenic nerve. So with our device, we expect to decrease ventilator time by about 1 to 2 days. And the amount of time that a patient spends on the ventilator is proportional to the complexity of care. So the sooner that we can get the patients off the ventilator, the quicker they can be put into a non-ICU setting where there's a reduction in the required staff. Morbidity and mortality will not only be reduced, but also non-reimbursable conditions such as ventilator-associated pneumonia will also be minimized. And so this overall translates to a significant reduction in cost with about $4,000 to $8,000 per patient. So our business model follows a razor blade model. And this includes a multi-use control unit that will be sold on a per hospital bed setting and priced at around $4,000. And we'll also have a single-use disposable catheter set that will be sold on a per patient per admission basis of $1,000 per unit. So prior to the COVID pandemic, there were 13 million mechanically ventilated patients in the world, and that number is growing every year. So we're going to begin by targeting the 36% of patients who have been on the ventilator for over 96 hours, because these are the patients who have the highest incidence of diaphragmatic atrophy. And overall, this translates to about a $1.5 billion market opportunity. So mechanical ventilation is generally reimbursed under DRG assignment. And while a specific illness is dependent on what put that patient on the ventilator in the first place, patients are generally categorized based on the duration that they're spent on ventilation. So for example, the most common ventilatory DRG code is one for respiratory distress syndrome, where Medicare reimburses on average $15,000 for patients who are ventilated for under 96 hours and $34,000 for any time over that. Long story short, there's already reimbursement in place, but we're going to continue to optimize coding, reimbursement, and coverage for our device. And we'll have these in place by the time we launch and go to market. Our go-to-market strategy will attack today's defeatist approach to weaning by demonstrating that a weak muscle is the culprit and that vent time can be better spent. We'll empower ICU clinicians to take control for their patients. We'll aim for new institutional and industry guidelines that will put our diaphragmatic practice, our workouts into routine practice. So currently, there are no products on the market that treat diaphragmatic atrophy, but we do acknowledge a couple of competitors that also are tackling this need. These companies are paving the way by showing that wean times can be improved through stimulation. However, these other therapies are either highly invasive, are limited to the patient's anatomy, or don't provide direct and accurate stimulation. At Exon Health, we're offering that Goldilocks solution. So my name is Ella, and I'm a serial entrepreneur with a PhD in biochemistry. And along with Dr. Lance Black and Dr. Mehdi Razavi, we founded this company as the pandemic really shined a light on our need to help these patients. I'm fortunate to have an amazing and experienced team who are passionate about improving these patients' lives. Lance Black has a clinical background and has proven himself to be a leader in the health tech community. Ron Mills has over 20 years of health tech experience and has brought his last company, Tivasol, through an acquisition. We also have Sarah, who's our lead engineer, and she has a master's in biomedical engineering that specializes in medical devices and has experience with regulatory safety standards at the FDA. We also have a great advisory team providing us support. So Dr. Mehdi Razavi is a practicing clinician at the Texas Heart Institute. He's an inventor and founder of many medical device companies. Dr. Hunter is a pediatric critical care physician that's supporting our efforts through exploring our device's applications in the pediatric population. And Dr. Jennifer Sunny, an experienced pulmonologist in the critical care setting, we have the expertise to bring this product forward. So last year, with the support from the Texas Medical Center and the Texas Heart Institute, we've been able to build and test a product that has been proven to work in large animal studies. And this year, from investment from SOSB and HACS, we've been focused on optimizing our product. We're raising a $3 million seed round right now to get us through the rest of our preclinical studies, and as we prepare for our first in human that we expect to begin in 2024. And as a class 2 medical device following the de novo pathway, we'll need to do clinical trials and we'll be raising additional rounds. And once we've gained approval, that can put us, we'll be able to go on the market. And at that time, we'll also make us an attractive target for acquisition. So comparable exits in the respiratory care space have ranged from 130 to $550 million, where acquisition targets include companies like Hillrom, Getinge, among others, who are active in the respiratory care space and have very specific initiatives to help improve wean times. So again, we're raising a seed round of $3 million to get us through the remainder of our product development, quality and compliance testing, finish our preclinical testing, and strengthening our patent portfolio while we prepare to engage with the FDA and begin our human trials. So thank you. We're XM Health, Muscle Through, the ICU.
Well done, Elizabeth. Judges, feel free to jump in with questions. Ken, go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, so thanks, Elizabeth. Really great idea. I was just wondering, given that you've got a number of years out still to work through this, and you said that there's already some other competitors, any sense of, are they ahead of you guys? Are they going similar kind of directions, or kind of what's the competitive headwinds that you guys might face?
Yeah, so nobody's on the market right now. The company that's the furthest along is LungPacer. They are the most invasive competitor that we have. They have a subclavian catheter product that also stimulates the phrenic nerve. We've done over 50 clinical interviews, and I ask every clinician what they think about their product. It's highly invasive. A lot of people don't do these anymore. It doesn't fit into the standard of care. So they are paving the way. They're showing that wean times can be improved through phrenic nerve stimulation, but I think they're going to have a hard time actually getting adoption on them when it comes time to going onto the market.
I just have to give you a quick plug, though. I'm always interested in people that are talking about things that are actually going to save money. So keep talking about saving money for us insurance guys. So thanks.
Okay.
Hi, Elizabeth. Great presentation. My question for you is about the fact that the catheter, right? It's a one-time use per patient. It looks like it was about $5,000 per cost per the time in the ICU. So $4,000 for the actual device itself, and then another $1,000 for the catheter, correct?
Yeah, so we have a multi-use control unit that's $4,000. So an institution would buy, however many ICU beds they have. They would probably not buy it for the whole ICU floor, but a couple of them so that they can be used in the whole ICU. And then the catheter is the disposable, so that's on a per patient basis. So it wouldn't come out to about $1,000. You would just have the upfront cost to buy a couple of the control units, and then it's $1,000 per patient per admission.
And then on average, how much time do you think you're saving by having the phrenic nerve be exercised, if you will, so that you don't have the longer period on the vent? How much time do you think you're saving?
So on average, we're targeting to decrease vent time by about 1 to 2 days. And we're getting this number, we think it's attainable. That's what LungPacer has published with their clinical trials. They had a 150 patient study.
About 150 patient studies showing that.
I know Elizabeth was having some
Oh
connectivity.
no, it's my loser.
Yeah, we might give her a sec for her internet to catch up.
So I think I lost you guys on one of my screens. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, you're back.
I apologize. I knew this might have happened, so I was ready on my second screen.
Okay. So my question for you, and where I'm going with this, as I'm thinking, as I see some really great inventions, technology coming out, and also thinking about sustainability. And so, as you know, there was a time where, as a healthcare executive, we really embraced having disposables because it helped us in terms of what was happening and central sterile supply and our reprocessing and things like that. But from a sustainability standpoint, always thinking about, if I'm introducing another device, right? If I'm introducing a catheter, what else am I saving? So I'm not having the same amount of disposables as I did in the past. Am I decreasing that footprint overall? So I would just ask you to think about that if you haven't already.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's why we are trying to make our device one single, it's not single use, it's per admission. So you would use the device you would introduce it into a patient on day 1, you would remove the device, and it's sealed in its own, it's like a little plastic baggie, it's sealed, and then you would reintroduce that device back into the patient multiple times. So there's like a sterility component to it. That's what they do with other devices in the respiratory care space.
Correct.
But you wouldn't be able to necessarily sterilize it and reinsert it into another patient. But we have thought about that. We don't want to add to the sustainability problem of this planet. So.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Any other last questions from the judges? All right. Well, great presentation, Ella and XN Health. And that concludes this session. Well done to all the companies who presented today. And let's turn it over to Aisha McCracken for some final remarks, the founder and board chair of Ignite. Take it away, Aisha.
Thank you, Therese. Thank you, presenters, judges, and Therese. Another great round. We are halfway through the virtual semifinals, so it's been a long day, especially for some of you who've joined us for both sessions. We have 2 more sessions left on Thursday. So if you want to hear those, you can go on to Ignite's website at the very bottom of the homepage. There's a link to RSVP, and we'll send you the link to connect. Finalists are going to be announced on Monday, October 10th. We hope you'll join us for the annual fire pitch competition, which is on November 3rd at TMC Innovation at 5 p.m., where the finalists will be pitching live and competing for investments and other prizes. Announcements with that link will be coming out next week. Thank you all for supporting Ignite and for being a part of this semifinal round. Have a great afternoon. We hope to see you again on another at another event. Thanks so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.